We like to play hard, but we also like to take care of ourselves. It's got to be healthy. It's got to taste good. Let's create a functional energy drink.
Welcome back to Flavor Report, part of dailyovation.com. My name is Joe Winger. Today we're going to be speaking with a beverage expert, decades of experience, Tony Vieira from Mocean Drinks. Thank you for joining us today.
Hi, Joe. Thank you very much for having me.
Absolutely. So you may know our audience is, for the most part, foodies, cocktail lovers, wine collectors, and we really like to focus on health and wellness also, especially because of how much we sometimes indulge in the other things. So with that said to our audience, for you, what's the most important message you have to share with our audience today?
I thank you for that description. Actually, it sort of rings so true with our audience as well. We're looking for balance, and we like to play hard, but we also like to take care of ourselves, and we're playing less hard lately, to be honest, especially at my age. But yeah, so our approach to the formulation was, look, we felt like there was a place for energy drinks that was an unmet need in the market. Meaning, most of the energy drinks today are geared towards males, say 16 to 24 years old, and and they're full of sugar. They got high caffeine levels and other stimulants and things like that. And we felt like, what happens after you get to 24, right? And you got a job at you're managing a cubicle at Goldman Sachs. Do you want to walk in with a candy flavored energy drink on your desk? And so my son and I were having these conversations, and it evolved into, let's create a functional energy drink that is made without any preservatives, any artificial colors, that sort of thing, that
Mhm.
has targeted functional benefits. And let's start from the ground up. And so that's what we did. We created this formulation from the ground up, and we tried to use very responsible levels of ingredients. So
Outstanding. So, for those who aren't familiar, just to kind of read through some of your best hits, before founding Motion, you spent 36 years in what I'm going to call traditional beverages, and correct me if that's the wrong word. Some places are former brewmaster at Anheuser-Busch, Blue Moon, Miller Coors, and a couple of years ago, a huge splash White Claw. Can you talk a
yeah,
little bit about some of the hits that you were a part of, but more importantly for this conversation, some of the lessons you learned working for those traditional beverage companies?
sure. Um, we the beverage companies. I was really fortunate. I started right out of college for working for Anheuser-Busch in the brewmaster training program. And so, in those large companies, I know there are a lot of folks that see large companies as perhaps a negative connotation. There is a lot of discipline and history there, and so I was able to learn um, how you focus on quality and the consumer experience in order to win business, and to maintain loyal and create loyal customers. So I worked over the years. I've worked on, the first beer I ever brewed was a Budweiser, right? So I've, Budweiser, Bud Light, all, the whole gamut. Um, I've worked for Miller Coors as well. So I've made Coors Light, Miller Light. And then my last 13 years was with Mark Anthony Brewing, which gave me the opportunity to help stimulate the the seltzer craze that went on, and quite frankly, Mark Anthony still kind of has that market cornered. Um, but by focusing on the customer, instead of, for me, instead of a tagline or a marketing gimmick, um, we were able to take that experience and come up with this formulation that we felt really worked for a market that was more mature and looking for a better for you option.
And we're going to get to that formulation in a second. Um, what you said a minute ago kind of resonates with me for a moment because you're talking about that Goldman Sachs guy who might be hyped up on what I'm going to call, and correct me if I'm wrong, like almost a candy, if you will, with so much sugar and flavor in it. So for that Goldman Sachs, any high stress, high performing person, what mistake are they making by relying on that candy beverage? And how does Motion fix that mistake?
Yeah, I think, I can give you the example. The best example I can give you is one with my son Christian, who helped me develop the brand.
Mhm.
So he was, 5 years ago, he's a 32-year-old soon to be dad. He's in the hospital. His wife is in labor, and they're going to have their first child that night, 2 in the morning.
Oh.
He needs to pick me up. He runs downstairs and he goes to reach for an energy drink, and all they got are like, Starburst flavored, candy flavored energy drinks, high in sugar. And he said, he told me, I went to reach for it, and I realized, yeah, I said to myself, what am I doing? I'm about to become a dad, and
Right.
I'm drinking these drinks that are just full of calories, and obviously targeting a much younger demographic than he is or was.
Mhm.
And so he didn't get it. And so, fast forward, we start talking about it, and we said, you know what, there's probably a place for a drink, and let's think of what an adult would want. Someone who, because we believe that actually there's a lot of people that might drink an energy drink, but it's got energy in general has such a bad rap that, a lot of people avoid it like the plague. And we wanted to try to draw those people into the market and also take advantage of those people that are sort of graduating out of traditional energy drinks. And Celsius is a good example, right? And, they've done a great job. Um, Sort
So
of
now
winning
you're
the
scaring me for a second because I used to drink Celsius. Is Celsius as bad as the others, or is it in the middle, or where would you rank
Yeah,
Celsius on the scale?
yes, I mean, Celsius is a great brand. It's better for you than traditional energy because it's typically lower in calories and so forth. Um, I think Celsius to me, what I don't like about not just Celsius, but some of the other energy drinks is that the caffeine levels are dangerously high, to be honest. And so we have about 130 milligrams of caffeine. Celsius, for example, has 200 milligrams, and you should only really take in about 400 milligrams in a day. And so, you know, it's easy to get jacked up on 200 milligrams, especially because people drink multiple in a day. And then on top of that, there may be in not specifically saying Celsius, but other energy drinks in general have other stimulants in there. So there's like this stacking effect of stimulants,
Mhm.
and you couple that with with sugar, and now the latest thing is taurine.
What was it like?
And
Did he bring the idea to you as someone with the experience? Did you have the idea at the same time? What's it like working with your son when you found a company like this?
no, I mean it's great. I mean it's sort of the conversation just happened organically. It was almost we almost joking around because he's exhausted. He's a stay-at-home dad. He works on this business, but he also takes care of three children from 5 to 9 months old, and so he's perpetually exhausted. And so, but even when he was having just their first child, we were. We were talking about this experience and and energy drinks and so forth, and we said, there is an opportunity there. It was sort of an epiphany for both of us at this, sort of simultaneously. Why don't we put something together and let's just see, right? So the formulation this happened during COVID, and that's why the formula took on this immunity support sort of bent to it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and 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 so again, we did this whiteboard. So we said, okay, these are the functional benefits that we want. What ingredients get us there, and what are reasonable amounts to put in? And so that's, we then took that target and
Mm-hmm.
backed into the formula. Um, and we're pretty happy with the way things had turned out.
I can't wait to hear more. So today you're here with Tony Vieira from Energy. On that scale that we're talking about, on one end is the cruddiest, sugary, empty calories. On the other end is super healthy. In your opinion, where would motion exist on that scale?
Motion would definitely exist on the very healthy side on that energy drink spectrum. Um, we're at 10 to 15 calories. The calories that come in our drink have they're derived from the juice that we put into our product. Um, we also have a very deliberate, and we call it, I call it this calibrated line of sight to the customer, in that, we're not going to overdose any particular ingredient. There's no reason to have 2,000% of the USRDA in a beverage, especially if you eat anything during the day, right? And so those are the things that we took on, that we considered when we did our formulation, and where we targeted, specific things like potassium and magnesium and zinc and so forth. Um,
Beautiful.
so I would say, we're definitely on the very healthy end, and also, we're what I would say is a super premium version of an energy drink.
Outstanding. Um, you mentioned word formula or formulation a few times. For a more novice listener or audience, what does that actually mean from a very simple point of view? And then walk us through either all the ingredients or the handful of ingredients you're most proud of, and tell us what the benefits of those ingredients are.
Sure. So formulation. So I'm a brewmaster by training, and so, formulation to me is, what percent by weight of any particular material or ingredient is in my my motion, right? Or any particular drink. Um, and so, the weight of the water, the weight, if I was in beer or in seltzer, I'd also be calculating the weight of the alcohol that was in there. The weight of the zinc um, per 12-ounce serving. So that's what when I talk about formulation, it's all about, the exacting dosages that go into creating the flavor profile.
Okay.
Um, the ingredients that really stick out in this formulation, I think, so a little bit of background on this wellness approach. I'm from the Philippines. I came over when I was very young. Um, and my mother came over with me, and she was a little 4'9", Filipino woman. She has since passed, but she was uneducated. And when I was growing up, if I got sick, she would break out the magnesium, the zinc, the elderberry, the echinacea, the sort of this. She was like a witch doctor, right? So as we, started to feel unwell, she'd whip up these little concoctions, and we'd take them. And so those ingredients have all made it into this formulation. And so I'm really proud of that, because it really points to the Eastern heritage and sort of my mom's influence on this beverage. And then we have what we consider, a hero ingredient, and that is a Eastern botanical called shiso, which is an herb that it helps with things like um, um, calmness and focus, and it's said to help with digestion. It's said to be anti-inflammatory. So we really like shiso. It also is because it's an Eastern in botanical. It was sort of a tip of the hat to my mother. And so those are the ingredients that and most people, if they look at the ingredient panel, they said, oh yeah, that's them the elderberry, the echinacea, the zinc. Those are things that you might find in something like airborne or emergency, some of those type of ingredients. But those actually came out of my mother's influence.
That's beautiful. What I love about this is from the top level, I assumed you just had decades of experience and said, gosh, I saw how these other companies did it. I want a healthier approach. But as we're talking, what I'm really learning, of course, that's part of the story, but it really is almost a family brand inspired by your son's journey, your mother's journey, and what you've learned from both of those different life journeys and experiences.
Yeah, you've hit it on the head, Joe. I mean, honestly, this is a labor of love. Right now, my son and I are the only two involved in the business. We have a couple people that help out a little bit, but really we're the only two involved, and and it was important for us to make sure that this brand had a very authentic and approachable image. And so, because we didn't, we wanted it to reflect us correctly. And so, we what you don't see on our can is it's not a pharmaceutical billboard, which is one of my pet peeves with some of the drinks that are out there. Um, we we believe that the consumer today, especially the consumer looking for a super premium pick me up energy
Mhm.
drink, right? They know what these ingredients do, or they'll research them on their own. And so we wanted to save the real estate on the can and let the brand breathe. And so that's why our can is as simple as it is, but it's also quite stunning. And actually getting a good response to it. I do want to get back to taurine in a minute, but taurine's another ingredient that I'd love to talk to you about because it's a big deal right now in energy.
Please tell me all about it. Now, I've seen Taurine on your website, on your cans, in your press releases. All I would ask is, in addition to giving me the expert opinion, also explain in the simplest terms why it's important to us because the average person may not know. We just keep seeing the name. So give us the simple approach and the expert approach, please.
Sure, sure. The simple approach is that taurine is a naturally occurring amino acid. And so, you know, if you have any sort of a diet, the normal diet, you're probably getting enough taurine in the day for most people. So it helps. It's a building block for muscles, um, for cell growth.
Okay.
Um, 9 out of 10 drinks that are sold in the U.S. today have taurine in them. Motion does not. When we did our whiteboard, it didn't make the cut. We just didn't. It wasn't something that we were interested in. It didn't have the benefit that we wanted, so we didn't put it in. But back the technical side, I would point your audience to an article by in a journal, scientific journal, very very prestigious scientific journal called the journal Nature, out of New York, Rochester. Um, it's a refereed scientific journal, which means that in order to publish, you have to present your information to a panel of experts that are outside of your friends and family, right? And they read your material, check your data, and say, yeah, this is a legitimate, scientific conclusion. And that so to get into the journal Nature, it's a big deal. Well, there was a study that came out in May of this year that showed that taurine in energy drinks, especially with the high sugar energy drinks, is promoting blood cancer growth. And so what that's saying is it's giving those cancer cells like a boost in the arm to grow faster. And I think it's a big deal, right? You know, especially if most people don't need to take supplemental taurine. And we're happy to say that we've never had it in our formulation, and we never will.
How common is it?
The challenge with it is that cancer cells grow because they outcompete normal cells, meaning that they're they're energy hogs and nutrient hogs, and that's why they grow so aggressively. Problem with a lot of folks that have cancer, and I do not have cancer, but I got worked up a couple of years ago because they thought I was sick, and they what they explained to me was that they put me into a PET machine to like a radioactive glucose or something that gets pumped in, and then they follow that and they trace where does that go. And so what the best explanation I can give you is that when they took the pictures, is that where the radioactive glucose accumulated the most is where they wanted to look, right? Because that was outcompeting other cells. So it might be a cancer cell. And the problem is you don't know you have cancer till you know. And if you're drinking energy drinks that are high caloric content and feeding it the amino acids and giving them all the building blocks, and you don't know you have these potentially serious diseases, you could be feeding those things and promoting growth. And I think that's the thing. Why, to me, it's why engage in that risk?
Why do you think, with all of your experiences, decades in the industry, why are so many brands using or even overusing taurine?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. I think the question that I've asked in conversations with my family is, are formulators just looking at someone else's ingredient panel and photocopying it and taking, their own swipe at it? And because taurine, the original energy was Red Bull. It's in there, and it's pretty much in everything that's been produced, up to today. That's why I think that maybe that's how taurine has ended up such a big piece of the market. Of course, the market leaders have taurine in there as well. My position is, look, a consumer needs to be informed. Nature is the most legit scientific magazine that you can get, or journal that you can get. So, I'd like the consumer to be informed about, the risk of taurine in this format, and promoting these blood cancers. And if they're interested in an option that's taurine free, well, then we are the option for them. That's basically my take, my opinion, and what I would suggest to a consumer.
That's beautiful. And going back to the origin of your mom, rather than science in a can, here we're dealing with medicine and natural ingredients in a can. Is that an accurate description?
Yeah. Like I said, my mom, is like a shaman and witch doctor, and she, she took a grassroots Eastern approach to wellness, and that's what I grew up on, and that's what ended up in this formulation.
We are here today with Tony Vieira from Mocean Beverages. We're going to get into flavors in a second. Find more about Mocean Beverages at drinkmotion.energy. Tony, currently, I think you have 4 cans being sold. Can you walk us through the flavors?
Sure. We've got blueberry pomegranate, strawberry guava, white peach, and mandarin. So those are the 4 flavors that we have launched with, and we are getting really, really good response to those flavors at the moment. And then, of course, we've only been on the market for about 3 weeks. So, and so it's all online at the moment, but we're getting extremely good feedback on those particular flavors.
That's fantastic. What, from the customer point of view, what's the favorite flavor you're hearing about the most? And then from your point of view, what's your favorite flavor?
Yeah, I probably hear the most about the blueberry pomegranate. Um, um, and that and the white peach are sort of seem to be some of the favorites. Although for me personally, I love the mandarin. Um, and so I think it depends on kind of, you know, what you like. So guava can be a polarizing flavor. So I think that's why some people, tend to not care for it as much. But the blueberry and that blueberry pomegranate
Hmm.
um, is so good and pure. I think that's why they people get attracted to it. But yeah, I'd be really curious what your thoughts are when you get to taste them.
Thank you. Um, I think something from a few years ago versus present moment is I'm going to call it the not fidelity, the robustness of flavors. On one end, you have the big flavor, like the punch in the mouth almost, and on the other end of that would be a more subtle flavor. When you're building these flavors, are these drinks more burst in the mouth or more subtlety? And in one or the other, because you're the brewmaster behind it, why did you choose that?
Yeah, I'm really glad you asked this question because it's something that I do want to talk about. It's, our my approach was, um, well, to back up a little bit. When we talk about formulation and what does that mean? Well, if you have a whole bunch of minerals and ingredients that all have a bitter taste or something, it's difficult to make that taste good, right? And I'll give you this is a funny story. When I started the development of my product, I knew what I wanted. I knew what ingredients I wanted, but we wanted to use a lab to help sort of select the final flavors. Because you can cycle through a lot of different actual flavors, and so we went to this lab and said, "Hey, this is what we want to do." And the criteria for us is that it's got to be healthy, and the other thing is it's got to taste good as it warms up. It's got to be really, really good cold, of course, but as it warms up, it has to continue to be palatable. And the guy on the other end of the phone, owns the lab, said to me, "You're talking about an energy drink. That's impossible." And I just said to him that I might be talking to the wrong lab. And, fortunately, we worked through it together and we've made iterations since then. But we came up with the product with less. So what happens is with all those ingredients and it starts to impact flavor, you have to start adding sugar in order to mask those flavors. And that's, in my opinion, that's why some of these energy drinks, early on and over the years have had so much sugar is because they're packed with so much in them that you need to do a little bit of masking or quite a bit of masking, and a lot of formulators do that with sugar. So my approach was I want a lighter flavor. I want to have less sweetness. Again, this was meant to be for a more mature consumer, maybe less attracted to, super sweet things, um, and flavors that are natural flavors, but flavors that are, things like fruit instead of Starburst or gummy bears. I, I don't, I can't imagine feeling good about trying to sell an energy drink with a candy flavor, cotton candy, right? It doesn't make sense to me. So ours are much more subtle and much more, I think, sessionable. Um, because we anticipate that you might be commuting, Joe, and you pick one up out of your refrigerator and it's ice cold, and you might sip it for 45 minutes on your commute. And we want to make sure that that experience is still good through the entire commute. And that's why I went the way I did on the formulation.
I personally prefer subtle over that burst in the mouth. So thank you for doing for personally for me, thank you for doing that. On your website, you use the word adulting quite a bit. Today we're talking about, for the word adult comes up quite a bit. Tell me a little bit about what you're hoping the adult response will be to your drink. And both from a health point of view, a flavor point of view, and I'm going to say a generational point of view, because I'm sure you've heard the rumors that alcohol consumption is going down because as a society, we're becoming more health conscious. So is Motion kind of riding that wave as well?
Yeah, I mean, we anticipate, we anticipate, of course, we're targeting, again, a more mature, say, target consumer than perhaps the traditional energy drink.
Right.
A more health conscious, more fitness conscious person, someone who's got a mortgage, right? Someone who might have kids, but someone who is slogging it every day, and is willing to is and is willing to reach into their pocket for a more premium product that aligns with their target needs or desires, for their own health and wellness.
From a business point of view for you, what's been the biggest surprise or challenge on this journey?
Yeah, I mean it's a tough road. It's not for the faint of heart, to try to launch any business, and
Right.
um, certainly a beverage business that requires third party manufacturing and ingredients sourced from around the world, and it's challenging. But it's so personally rewarding. I think that's what we're getting out of it. Both my son Christian and I, is that it's a lot of work. It's hard work, a lot of hours, but we're getting a lot back out of it, even if it's not economically yet, right? But
Understood.
we seem like we're getting what we need out of it.
Outstanding. We're wrapping up today with Tony Vieira from Drink Motion Beverages, 35 years in the beverage industry, making beers, making all kinds of things as a brewmaster. And now we're focused on health and wellness with four delicious flavors. As we're wrapping up, are there any future plans as far as do you expand the flavors, or as you're growing and as you're selling more and more, what are the next 18 months look like for Motion?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the 18 months is our critical time frame. It's going to take us 18 months to really start to establish retail like we want, and to get the flywheel turning. Um, and So we're looking forward to that expansion. I'd love to come back and talk to you about that, once we get going. And then as far as future flavors, we've got I've when I did my formulations, I put together about 10 different formulas, different flavors, and so we are debating when we might introduce or rotate some of these seasonally, that sort of thing. But we do have kind of an arsenal of flavors available.
When it comes to learning more about you, when it comes to buying the beverages now, what are the best ways, whether it's a website, social media, what are the best ways to follow on your journey and to purchase Motion?
Yeah, so we do sell direct to consumers on our website. That's www.drinkmotion.energy. And you can find some information in there about the brands and the flavors, and you'll get a feel for sort of the personality of our brand in there as well. We are on Instagram. Um, my I'm not a social media guy. My son is taking care of that. We're also launching other social media platforms as well, but Instagram right now is the primary one.
Yeah.
Um, and then of course, anyone on LinkedIn can find us as well, and see our backgrounds on LinkedIn as well.
So one last time, Tony, we're with Tony Vieira from Mocean Energy Drinks, drinkmotion.energy. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for teaching us about flavor and health and just sharing decades of your experiences with us. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Joe. I appreciate you give us an opportunity to meet with you today and to talk to your audience. Thank you.